Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmerceddecoder.com with another C tutorial. And I discovered that on REPL there's dark mode. See, I can just go over here to this gear here and there's all sorts of options. So now the font is a little bit bigger, so that should be easier to read and all that good stuff. So yeah, I don't think that it increases the size here in the terminal. I wonder if they have a setting for that too. Keybind, wrapping, no, doesn't seem like it. Okay. Well, that's fine. Okay, so what I want to talk about in this episode is just a couple more C features. Again, C's feature set is fairly limited. A lot of it you have to kind of build out on your own, or rely on third-party libraries, because it is really sort of a kind of gives you the bare necessities to really kind of program. So like a lot of the stuff that C++ adds, as far as object orientation and classes and methods, comes along with that, and a lot of the other abstractions like annotations that come with Java. There's a lot of other things that have just kind of been added along the way in other languages. But let's see here. Basic, let's just talk about basic control flow. There are if statements, so we can say we'll create a variable called 5. So we'll say int num equals 5. Okay, and then we'll just say if num is greater than 4, then we will print f. Okay, print f, it is true. Okay, and then that needs a semicolon, and if that is false, so an else statement, then print f, it is false. Okay. So right now, 5 is greater than 4, so we should get it is true. And we see we get it is true there. Nice. Okay, and if I change this to 2, which is not greater than 4, we should get it is false. So again, if statements, just like in any other language, evaluates the expression. If the expression is true, it'll run the code in this block, and if it's false, it'll run the code in the else block. Cool. And then you got your standard loops, so you got a while loop. So let's do this in num2. That's fine, we'll leave it as num2. While num is less than 5, basically do the code in this block. So we will print f num. Okay, although it's gonna want me to do this, %d num. Okay, semicolon. Okay, and then we'll just say num equals num plus 1. Okay, which just means we're gonna add 1 to num. So that way on each round, num's going up until, so first it'll be 2, then it'll be 3, then it'll be 4, and then it will be 5. So then so basically it should run through this loop 3 times. So let's take a look and see if that works. So we should see it print 2, 3, 4 on the screen. Yep, and that's what we got. 2, 3, 4 right there. Okay. Neat. I really do wonder if there's a way to make the font in this thing bigger here. Nope. Okay. Now that we got the loop, there's also for loops. So the way for loop would work, so we just create a new variable. So for int I equals 0, long as I is less than 10. And then, let's see, I think increments in C, maybe not, we'll find out. Yep, that looks like we do still have increment operator there, which plus plus just means add 1, minus minus would be minus 1. Okay, and then each time what we're going to do is just print f, and we're going to do %d and I will be what goes in there, and then we actually make sure there's a new character in there, so that way it's all on a separate line. And we need a semicolon to end the statement. And now if I hit this, see 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, because it basically does everything we did before. It creates a variable, I, and this will loop as long as I is less than 10. But on the end of each loop, we add 1 to I. So on the time that the I is 10, it stops looping. Cool, so we got that, so that's all good. And before I kind of briefly mentioned arrays. Arrays are a way to have multiple pieces of data. But let's talk about how to create arrays. I could just declare an array and then add data to it afterwards. So I could do something like this, like int my r, and then I'll put in like it has 5 spots. Okay, now I've declared an array, and then I can be like my r, and then we'll just say when access spot, technically it starts at 0, so the first spot's 0, and we'll say equals 4. Okay, and then I can assign the different values there. So then if I want to access that particular spot, I can now do like print f, again that's going to be an integer, so %d, and the new line, and again the variable we're putting in that percentage spot is going to be my r at the 0 index, and then we need a semicolon. So we run that, so we get 4. That works. You could also just declare, fill in the spots right away. So I could choose, instead of saying, hey, make an integer array that holds up to 5 integers, what I could do is just leave this empty and then do this. Equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if you come from like JavaScript, Ruby, or Python, this can seem a little unnatural to use curly brackets to define your array, but hey, it is what it is. In Go, they kind of do that a little bit. So it's not too unnatural if you're coming from there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if I want to print out the number 4, okay, in this case, 4 is going to be 0, 1, 2, 3. So it's going to be at the 3rd index. So then I would do this. So let's run it, see if it works, and see we get 4 again. Okay, so that's how arrays work. And that's pretty much what you have far as out-of-the-box data structures. Any other data structure beyond arrays, really, you have to kind of make on your own. And you do that using either structs and, to a lesser extent, unions, which we'll talk about in another video. But yeah, so this video we learned a little bit about arrays, a little bit about ifs and loops in C. Again, we're talking about C, not C++, so no classes and slightly different function names. But otherwise, pretty much the same deal. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good one. Ciao.